So let's ask a question that sounds really simple on the surface, but can honestly unravel everything you think you know. Is the world we experience real, or is it all just some kind of elaborate illusion? Let's really dive in.
I'm sure you've heard this phrase bouncing around before, right? It shows up a lot in spiritual conversations and texts. And for a lot of people, it's a huge stumbling block. I mean, it sounds like a total rejection of everything we know and feel.
Exactly. The immediate and totally valid reaction is to point to things that feel undeniably real. The horrors of war, the deep ache of personal suffering, heck, even the solid feeling of the chair you're sitting on right now. How could any of that possibly be an illusion?
Okay, and this gets us to the absolute heart of the matter. The teaching isn't that the world isn't real. The war is real. Your suffering is real. The question that really unlocks this whole thing isn't if it's real, but what is its reality? What is it actually made of underneath its appearance?
So why is this so darn confusing for us? Well, it seems to boil down to this one really deeply ingrained belief we have as a culture. We've basically been taught to believe that the word real only means physical matter. If you can't touch it, if it isn't made of atoms, then it's just not truly real. But that, it turns out, is a super limited definition. So to clear up this whole contradiction, we just need to get crystal clear on what we mean by these words. It really all comes down to telling the difference between two words that we tend to use as if they mean the same thing. Okay, on one hand, you've got illusion. An illusion is something that isn't what it appears to be, but it still has a reality to it. Now compare that to unreal, which means it just flat out doesn't exist. And that's the whole ballgame right there. These teachings are saying the world is an illusion, not that it's unreal. Okay, so how do we actually find the true reality of any experience? Well, there's a simple three-step path we can follow. First, just start with any experience. Say you remember a beach from a dream you had. Step 2, trace it back to its source. What was that dream beach really made of? It wasn't sand or water, was it? It was made of your own mind. And third, find the ultimate reality of that source. What is the mind itself made of? The deepest we can go, the answer we land on is consciousness.
And by consciousness, you could also just say pure awareness. It's the foundational reality. Think of it like the screen that every experience is projected onto. The thing is, in our direct experience, you can't go any further back than this. You can't get behind it. You can't find something that consciousness itself is an appearance of. It's the ultimate ground of everything.
I know, that can still feel really abstract and kind of out there. So let's bring this down to earth with a really simple analogy that makes this whole idea much more concrete.
So picture this. You're sitting in a movie theater. On the screen, there's this vast, gorgeous landscape. You see green fields, big, rugged mountains, a perfect blue sky. To your eyes, it looks completely real.
But here's the question. If you could pause the film, walk right up to one of those mountains on the screen and touch it, what would you actually feel? It wouldn't be rock and dirt, right? So what is the actual substance of that entire, very convincing landscape?
You'd find the screen. That's it. The entire landscape, every single blade of grass, every rock, every cloud is made out of nothing but the screen. The landscape is the illusion. The screen is its one and only reality.
And this illustrates a really profound point. There is nothing to the illusion of the landscape other than its reality, which is the screen. The landscape isn't made of some special landscape stuff plus the screen. Nope, it is 100% screen, just taking on the appearance of a landscape.
So, let's take that analogy and apply it directly back to our own experience. If our world is just like that landscape on the screen and consciousness is the screen itself, what does it actually mean for us right here, right now? Now, this is where a lot of us get tripped up. We assume that if there's this ultimate reality, then the physical world must be some kind of barrier, some veil that's hiding it from us, just like the movie seems to hide the plain white screen. But see, that's the big misunderstanding. The landscape doesn't hide the screen at all. It is the screen, just appearing as a landscape. And in the very same way, the world doesn't hide consciousness from us. The world is nothing other than consciousness itself, appearing as the world. So, if the world itself isn't the veil, then what is? What's getting in the way and making this reality seem so hidden or separate from our day-to-day lives? The veil, it's just a belief. That's it. It's the deeply held thought that the world is just a bunch of separate objects made of matter, and that it all exists independently from consciousness. That single belief is the only thing that appears to hide the screen from our view.
Now, this way of looking at the world might feel really modern and new, but it's actually an ancient understanding. The problem has always been how it's been explained.
The thinker, Rupert Spira, whose work really inspired this whole explainer, he talks about how it took him 20 years to really get this. And a big part of that was because these simple ideas were often wrapped up in all this complicated cultural packaging that made them really hard to get to.
But here's the amazing thing. The invitation today, with all that packaging removed, is that you don't need 20 years. We can start to really get the essence of this right here and now.
You know, there's a line from the Sufi tradition that just captures this whole idea so beautifully. Wherever you look, there is only the face of God. Or, if we use the language from our analogy, wherever you look, you are only ever seeing the screen.
And so, that leaves us with one last, very direct question for you. If it's true that the world doesn't hide reality but actually shines with it, what are you really looking at right now?